I don't really know where it's coming from, right? So I'll look at something and I'll either love it or not. I do enjoy like the movement aspect, but for me it's like design and feel the movement. I have a lot of friends who are into the same pieces. Those kind of people are always looking as well. Like they're like, oh, you know, this is interesting. Have we all looked at this, or have you looked at this? And then I'm like, oh, I haven't looked at that, and then boom, rabbit hole. My background is design, and that is actually what got me interested in watches. You know, the different variants, the different models, what differentiates a watch and, you know, can often add significant value. I started exploring like reference guides and publishing those on my website. I'd say 2019, 2020 is when I really started, you know, going into the history, the different variants and everything. So a lot of the articles, it's not just me sat down, you know, putting it online. It's actually a lot of collectors who are providing pretty much the majority of the information, and I'm just connecting the dots and building conversation around it. This is a very special piece for me because it again ticks everything that I'm about. So this one is a minute repeater perpetual calendar, which is a crazy complication. So this case is 34 mil. And what's particularly impressive about this is it is a Jean-Pierre Hagman case. So it has a JPH stamp between the lugs. It means, you know, he's worked on this case. At the very same time, he was working on the 3974 Patek, which is the very first perpetual calendar minute repeater wristwatch. And they both came out at the exact same time, where the Patek just crept out the door first. And that's worth over 10x this. The risk of finding and pursuing these slightly offbeat bits is what is going to build a nice brand. So I like to think of it as like old enough, off people's regular spectrum, which provides some great collecting opportunities. I think that era connects really heavily to the design variants, which originally pulled me into it, because they were experimenting with new dials, new styles, new fonts, new cases, you know, new pushers, water resistance, different movements. You know, they were transitioning from heavily used older movements into newer pieces, and you see the same movement appear across a number of brands, and how they finish them is different. It's just a crazy space, and there's just so much to enjoy and so much still undiscovered. This is like a insane passion project for me. This is the King Midas, which was originally brought out in '62, I believe. This is an example of a niche, but like expanding around it. So it's not neo-vintage, it's a lot older. It's Rolex, which doesn't really tick that general vibe of what I'm buying, but it's wacky, and it's not what someone would expect when you say, I've got a Rolex, which is why I like it. So the design, if you put the watch on its side like that, it's actually the shape of a temple. So you've got the temple here with the asymmetric design, and that was the Greek temple of gods is what it's based off. The lines through the bracelet are meant to represent the columns of a temple, and then you've got the crown on the top, which is a sun. And so that's the sun above the temple. And then it's the King Midas because everything he touches turns to gold. So just the whole story is just amazing, right? And it's a Rolex. It's just a stunning piece of history and an incredible piece of value. Like Elvis used to wear these, and then more recently Rihanna has worn one, and they've just exploded again. Like the back watch story is a gifted Mondaine watch from my family. So that was the very first watch, and probably the one that's had the most wrist time in my life. It's currently got a flat battery and has for the last 5 or so years. So I haven't worn it recently, but I wore that every day for a long time. And then the first step into, let's say, like luxury watches was my now wife's father's two-tone Daytona, which he would wear religiously, you know, to the beach, fixing his car, anything, he's wearing it. And so I just spent a whole family holiday drooling over that, and got home from that trip, and I was just absolutely obsessed. And then I actually went on to buy my own Daytona, which was my first ever watch back before they were too crazy. But yeah, sadly that has been sold, as with pretty much all of my watches, to fund the business. So it's a bittersweet thing to talk about, but it's helped me where I am today. So.